Welcome to the Navigating Solo podcast, a dedicated platform where we explore the unique needs and concerns of solo aging with a focus on empowerment, connection, and proactive planning. I'm your host, Aileen Gerhardt, and today I am pleased to welcome you to this special episode of the Navigating Solo podcast. This panel discussion was recorded live during our Navigating Solo Fall online gathering in November 2024. Please join solo agers Michaela, Peggy, and Norman as they share their personal experiences, building meaningful connections and planning for the future. Their insights offer practical advice and encouragement for anyone embracing solo aging. Stay tuned for an honest and heartfelt conversation on crafting a fulfilling life as a solo ager. I'd like to welcome everyone to our fall Navigating Solo gathering. It is so nice to see so many rectangles with us. I see some returning participants, as well as I'm thrilled that there are folks joining us for the very first time. My name is Aileen Gerhardt. I'm an independent board certified patient advocate, a certified senior advisor, a solo aging educator, national speaker. I have my own business called Beacon Patient Solutions, where I work with people to navigate the complexities of the healthcare system. And in October of 2021, after doing some really good deep dives into the subject of solo aging as part of my community education talks, I founded the Navigating Solo Network, navigatingsolo.com, which is the organizer of tonight's program. It's a network where, as you can see, we bring people together, as well as a website with all kinds of resources, including a resource library, an events calendar. We've just launched a podcast, and other things are coming along the way in 2025. Please use the website, access the resource library and the other recorded talks and interviews and books and articles, all focused on solo aging, which is really neat that there's a wealth of that out there. And also, we are launching regional groups. We have been asking for about a year now for people to demonstrate interest in regional groups. If you have filled that out, I have not forgotten, I promise you. And there is a plan to launch that in the early part of 2025. And you are still welcome to continue to sign up on the website for that. Anything and everything related to the Navigating Solo Network is available via Navigating Solo. I'm happy to follow up towards the end of the program with any questions anyone has about any of that information. I am thrilled to welcome three guests who will be offering a panel discussion on different topics related to navigating the holidays and winter and future planning as we look at this time of year as the winter seasons approach. Our first panelist I'm honored to introduce is Michaela Cassidy, a newly solo consultant based in San Francisco, now working as an end-of-life doula. She's in training, providing companionship and support for those navigating life's final transition. She previously held roles in corporate America as a change management consultant and executive, and Michaela, as in addition to both of our other guests as well, has been a part of the Navigating Solo growth and movement from the very beginning. Peggy Crawford is a retired clinical health psychologist and solo ager based here in the Northeast. She has been navigating solo life since her husband's death 7 years ago. She co-teaches a brain health and memory fitness program at a local senior center and has developed a really excellent community education program called Aging and Thriving, and also has founded a kinship for the kinless group, which has been thriving for the past 18 months. And our third speaker is Norman Reese, who also is based in the Northeast. And he has recently retired after many years dedicated to helping older adults lead fulfilling lives. He continues to volunteer with a wide array of organizations that offer programs for older adults, including self-help, DeRote, Front Porch, Get Set Up, and Digital Grandparents. Now, all 5 of those may be brand new to you, so we will make sure to drop the links to those resources in chat throughout the program. Welcome, Michaela, Peggy, and Norman, and thank you so much for joining us and for creating this panel. The first question I have is related to the holiday season and the whole notion that it can be a time of quote unquote tradition or traditions, but often over time for older adults in general and solo agers specifically, those experiences can shift. So for each of you, how do you approach those holiday traditions? And have your routines or celebrations or approaches changed over the years?
I'm Michaela, and I'd like to respond first to Aileen to a question in the chat and tell you a little bit how I identify as a solo ager. I wasn't able to have children, and I would have liked to. Family's been very important to me, but I'm aware that I also don't want to be a burden on any of my nieces and nephews or godchildren or whatever. Plus, my husband was much older than I. And so now that I am newly single, I'm navigating these roads in a firsthand, up close and personal way. But back to Aileen's question about the holidays. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and my dear friend Michael lived across the street from me, 3 doors down. He went to the Catholic boys' school. I went to the Catholic girls' school. And lo and behold, we spent 45 years living in San Francisco down the same street, but this time a mile apart. So we were very close. He's a gay man who never really came out, and I realized he died in January of 2021, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with me for the holidays. And I realized, took a while, but I realized that Michael was my organizing principle because he was basically family. And I didn't want him to be alone, and I like to cook. So Michael came over for all of the holidays, and once I had one guest, I didn't care how many people came. So I ended up hosting happily people for all of the holiday dinners, and it was a place to go to. And it worked out really well. And after he died, I couldn't figure out what. But once that light bulb came on, I'm really grateful now because for real now I am by myself. And I've already experienced that heartbreak in a different way and the angst and what does it mean and do I invite myself or not or any of those kinds of things. And so and the other thing is my husband was older and elder and now can do stuff. It's Lordy. I could do this. Do I want to do this? What do I want? And that's just, it's amazing, sometimes exhausting. But this year I decided to go be with my sister and brother and some family in Denver that are still there. And then for the holidays, I invited myself up to Folsom, which is outside of Sacramento, to be with other friends. And then I'm going to make lemonade. Don't know what it's going to look, but I'm going to do that. So thank you.
Peggy?
Thanks. It's great to be here. And my husband and I chose not to have children. And as Aileen said earlier, he died a little over 7 years ago. And we used to love to travel on the holidays. And for over 40 years, we lived in Cleveland. because of our work. And so it was nothing to go to New York City for New Year's Eve or to Toronto for Thanksgiving. And so I missed that for sure. So I clearly am thinking I need to find somebody. I want to find somebody to travel with for some holidays. And I love to cook. And sometimes if we were staying home or we were going to close by to friends, I would cook things and take them. Or we would have students over from the universities and students who were not able to go home or didn't have a place to go for the holidays. And that was always great fun as well. And so sometimes I still just cook favorite dishes just for myself. I always, even before I got married, was somebody who cooked for myself. So I still do that. And I really have encouraged myself to accept more invitations from people. So I'm basically an introvert by nature, but I'm finding myself wanting to be around people more. It was difficult because about 4.5 years ago, I moved from Maine to Cambridge, Mass. I grew up in Massachusetts on the South Shore. And so it was like coming home for me. But it was right at the beginning of COVID. So it made it really tough to meet people. But that's improved dramatically. And so now when I am invited somewhere, I just really say, you know what, Peggy, just go. You can always leave after a couple of hours or 3 hours or something like that. But I'm really trying to work on coming out of my introvert comfort zone. I also have 4 little kids that are absolutely wonderful, 2 sets of siblings, 2 in Salt Lake City and 2 up in Maine, that I love holiday shopping for them. So I get lists from the parents, and I love the picking things out and wrapping them and packing the boxes. And every time I get these wonderful, fun videos from the parents of the kids opening the presents and thanking me, Auntie Peggy, and this kind of thing. So that's really been a lot of fun. And I just really am working consciously to make plans and have things to look forward to. And concerts, I have a couple things coming up, going to a show at the MFA, Museum of Fine Arts for people not from Boston, and just really put some effort into planning the next few weeks and the next few months. I love having things to look forward to.
Thank you. And Norman?
Nick, everyone. Let me start off by saying that I haven't had kids either. I was married for about 10 years. I got married in my 40s, so it was a little late to have children at that point. I would never say that they're only a big priority for me anyway. The other thing about my upbringing is that my parents had me kind of later in life. As a result of that, many of my relatives have passed away over the years. Some left, many. As to how I found myself in the situation that I'm in. But as far as the holidays go, I've kind of developed my own ways of observing them. I don't really have any big family things anymore. I mean, I do try to get together with friends whenever I can. Unfortunately, I have some really nice friendships that I've been able to make. But I'd like to mention just a couple of things that I do near the end of the year that I have found to be satisfying. Fortunately, they're all things that I can do pretty much on my own, although definitely would recommend that when you have holiday things going on, it's always good to bring in people when you can. Things that I have been doing for years is, number one, I go to visit a lot of my favorite places. I have lived in many different neighborhoods in New York, and I have many areas that I've liked to visit over the years. Most of them, the commonality they share is that they have somebody water nearby. I kind of make it a priority near the end of the year to go to those places, and I particularly like to go and see the sunset, especially on the last day of the year. It's something nice to be able to go down to these places that recall the times of my life that I lived in those areas, and to be them as a good experience ahead. One of the things that I do, and I think I get a lot of pleasure out of, I use the end of the year as a way to review favorite music that I've had during the year. And since I've been doing this custom since the 1960s, as you would imagine, I have a lot of favorite songs that I have developed that I have basically listed over the years. When I was growing up, I started this tradition pretty young. I used to play all of my favorite from the beginning when I started for the music. And I would do that all on New Year's Eve. I don't know if I cares, but you happy about that tradition that I have. I have since modified it where at this point I kind of spread it out into multiple days because it's a little bit too much to do on one day or one evening. But I do find that music has always been a great comfort to me, and especially being able to enjoy favorites that I've had for such a long period of time, and to be able to make my own song list, which not usually very different from what the popular songers have at the top song. I have give a lot of enjoyment. Lastly, what I like to do, I've been a writer for many years. I've been writing about my life. Highlights, they go on, not every day, but basically, usually at least once a week, I write about things that go on. And the end of the year comes, I do something called my year-end review, where I basically talk about things I've done over the year that passed, and also I address things that I'm hoping to do in the new year. It keeps me quite busy. And like I said before, I think it's always good to find ways to celebrate the holidays with others. So don't necessarily just copy all of these ideas if they sound interesting to you, or if you can, find a way to enjoy them with and have them share the activities with you. Being that the holidays otherwise would be a relatively quiet time for me, as opposed to many people, I find that having these customs has really helped me look forward to the end of the year, look forward to doing a lot of big things for a long time.
Thank you very much. Each of you, as I've seen float by in the chat, have all different ideas, have certainly shared their own experiences. So I hope you've had some ways to take things from that. The other thing about this time of year is that some form of winter, either technical winter, if you are somewhere that doesn't have what we have in the Northeast as winter, or some part of the middle of the country as winter, comes around. And that can definitely be a challenge as well. The fact that it gets darker earlier, the fact that there might be precipitation or something else, ice or otherwise, to navigate. So for each of you, how has managing colder weather affected, or how does it affect emotional well-being? Are there practical tips that you have when facing possible challenges with mobility or transportation or access to resources? And also, if you can, just share how you plan to, how you have in the past, how you plan to in the future, maintain your emotional and social well-being as we navigate this time of year. Michaela, would you like to go first again?
Sure. As you all can probably see on my screen, I have a happy problem here in San Francisco. It's almost 4:15 and glory be. The sky is clear, the sun is bright, and it's shining in my eyeballs. So I apologize for the blinds and all of that, but that's as good as you're going to get from me. And I dodged a serious 5 or 10 minute rainfall this morning, which was wonderful because, as you know, we and now many of you in the Northeast need rain too. So I'm not complaining. I grew up in Denver and I literally walked to school when it was 25 below, but I had winter clothes, boots, galoshes, all that stuff, and red blood cells. And so now that I've lived here for a long time, it's deeply embarrassing that I get really cold when it's 55 degrees outside. And that's just, it's shameful for my Colorado roots. But if you ever come to visit, no matter what time of year, make sure you bring layers. And so I just add longer sleeve things and more layers and all of that. I also really like sunshine. And I have mixed feelings about daylight savings time because the transition's kind of a bother. But I realized some time ago that I was starting to pay attention to the end of daylight savings time in the June, July period and the days getting shorter. And then all of a sudden, a light bulb came on, and I'm going, duh, dingbat. Why don't you also pay attention to the days getting longer? And so I've started doing that, and it's become kind of a nice awareness thing. And so the days are getting shorter. I'm comforted that in a month, plus or minus just a few days, that winter equinox will have happened and the days will be getting longer. And so that's comforting to me. And when I go to see my sister in Colorado, it snowed 23 inches a few days ago. And I have to literally excavate from a too busy closet my snow boots and all of that kind of stuff. But they're in there somewhere and I'm going to find them. And if I don't, worst case, I'll go to Target or someplace and buy new ones.
I like the solution-based plan. Thank you, Michaela. Peggy?
I actually grew up here in the Boston area, and so I am really good at dealing with winter. And in fact, I prefer cold weather. I'm not a hot weather person, and I burn like crazy, and my eyes are super sensitive to light. So I'm not a hermit, but I'm really okay with the dark and shorter days. I do love to walk outside. And I know that, now there's this big push for us to be out in the morning and get some sunshine. So I love to go out really early. Even now, I can go out even earlier because of the time changing. So I might go out at 6:30 in the morning and walk for an hour. And there's a great bakery close by where I can get some really terrific stuff, although I try not to go there too regularly. But they have great whole wheat bagels. But I realized that because I had a knee injury 3 years ago, it was not in the winter, so it was not ice related. I actually fell down the front cement steps of the local library and had a pretty significant injury, my first ever injury, and overnight in the hospital, and I had to have surgery right away. So I think since then, I'm just really more cautious. So making sure that my footwear is in great shape, but I've always had good boots living in New England and in Cleveland when I lived there because we had a lot of snow off of Lake Erie. And I'm just very watching. I watch the surfaces because it can get pretty icy here in the winter. And sometimes I just walk in the street on streets that I know don't have a lot of traffic. And I always make sure that I have my phone, something that probably in the past I wouldn't really have thought too much about, but just in case. So I try really to maintain most of my usual activities. I exercise, as I said, outside, but I go to a fitness center that is specifically geared to older people. It is the most amazing place. It's like the Cheers of fitness centers. Because when you walk in, everybody knows you and smiles and makes eye contact and knows your name and that sort of thing. And so I go there 2 to 3 times a week and, plan to continue that, have done that for the last couple of years. I actually got to that place because of my physical therapist that I worked with after my knee injury. So my knee injury, in fact, turned out to be a turning point in my life here as a solo ager, because it also made me realize how much I needed, as COVID started to improve, to get out and really meet people and put myself out in the community. Not that I would want to do it again and be in a brace for 6 weeks, but, good things. I guess it's kind of like Michaela said, you make lemonade whenever possible. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of that. And Norman, your plan for winter?
I have to say that this winter will be a little different from winter in the past because it's my first time that I will be retired when the cold weather comes. But I will say that I do many of the same things in the winter that I have been doing other parts of the year. I still swim. I don't go to the outdoor pool, obviously, but I go to the indoor pool instead. I also do a lot of walking, try to walk almost every day, I would say. Just making sure that I have adequate clothes, obviously, so I'm comfortable. But I do have to say that the winters haven't been as bad recently than what I remember in the past. Maybe that's part of the whole global climate thing that's going on. In any event, many of the things also that I do the rest of the year are all online. Of course, I always tell people online things are great, going to be kind of a great way to be with people, a great way to socialize and learn things, but it's also good to find ways to be with people or offline as well. But I do cheat usually at one point during the winter. I'm very fortunate. My partner has a place in Florida. I do spend a little time down there during the winter season to enjoy the warmer climate. But some of the things that used to bother me don't bother me as much anymore. I used to get really annoyed changing my recliner. And even today, when I was driving home, partner visited someone's house. 4:45, it was already dark, and like really not a good thing. But I try not to let those kind of things that made it dimmer. I try not to let the cold weather affect me as much as it used to. I just know that the days will, as was mentioned before, the days will start getting longer soon enough, and the weather will be improving in a short time as well. And like I said, the winters seem to be a little better than they used to be. So basically the winter is a lot like the rest of the year, although this year, this I'm still kind of evolving what retirement is going to look like. I'm sure you'll.
Thank you for all of those things. I see people are continuing to share resources, ideas, thoughts, and reflections in chat. Please continue to do that as we continue on. So we know this time of year, we're looking at things like holiday traditions. We're navigating the potential of things like winter weather, daylight, lack of daylight, all of that good stuff. And also, we know that we're looking towards the future, that we will be changing the calendar to another year. With that approaching, many people take the time to reflect and possibly set goals. And so, for each of you, how do you approach this period of reflection and goal setting? Are there specific things that the three of you each do that you would like to share with our group? Michaela, you're doing such a good job going first. You're on a streak.
So I'll share some humor. As I said, my husband died just not even 6 months ago, so I'm quite the de facto newbie in all of this area. I never really was much of New Year's resolution kind of person, but I'm finding myself noticing the end of the year and the beginning of a new year. And for me, it does feel like, and I know I'm starting a new chapter in my life. And so I'm being nicely thoughtful. I'm actually kind of enjoying it about trying to figure out what are the things that I have done that I want to continue to do or that I might start doing because I recognize I'm very blessed, but I got reasonable odds of living another 20 or 25 years. And OMG, what does that mean? What does that look like? And, all of that stuff. And I'm a business consultant and I can be kind of hoity-toity. So I've sort of started a list of policies and they're funny. Like I decided that I was going to make the bed every morning. That was something that I mean, I always did, but it was important to Terry. And he would joke that it's a much easier, it's an excellent two-person job. And I now know that he's exactly right about that. Um, and I remember after my first, um, my only divorce, I was doing something down in the dining room and I needed to change the leaves in the dining room table. And that is an impossible job to do with one person. Impossible. I'm kind of noticing things like that. And part of my interest in aging solo with this group and calling it for what it is, if I call stuff out, like Julie said that when she moved to new towns, she made cookies and delivered them to people and they invited her and she started relationships and say, you can come visit me anytime you want. But I also, before Terry died, I had a colonoscopy and I couldn't drive myself home and he didn't drive. So I had to ask somebody and it was really hard. And then I thought, girl, I'm glad you had that experience. And there's something wrong with this because if you asked me to pick you up at the hospital, there's technical details, sure, but I'd say, of course, no prob. And can we have lunch? You know, whatever it is. And so I'm sort of creating a notebook in my mind about where some of these questions and what I want the next steps should look like. And when my father died when I was 24, I was way too young and it's a long story. But sometime then, I realized for the first time what I have to implement now, that my family was all in Denver and I was the only one not there. And that if I want a relationship with my mom and my siblings, I'm the one that needed to make it happen because they had small kids. They weren't going to come to me, this and that and the other kind of thing. And now it's same song, second verse, where if I want relationships, continual relationships, I have to reach out and make it happen. And that's extra true because I know there are people, and they've as much as said so, that they're not calling me because they don't want to bother me and they don't want to touch that grief thing because, oh my goodness, what would that mean? And so I'm trying to balance all of these thoughts. Another read a wonderful book called The Grieving Brain, and it says that my brain is literally making new neurons and transmit, all that stuff that it does there. And that's my happy excuse for why I just get tired, because my shelf life used to be like this. And now it kind of goes, "Ugh," and I just have to stop and regroup because my new way of being is taking an awful lot of energy from me. But I've joked, except for it's not a joke. I haven't let the bastards get me yet, and I'm not going to start now.
Thank you, Michaela, for the candid answers, the practical answers, and all of the universal pieces that each experience is unique and we all experience things very uniquely, but the universal challenge of how to interact with someone around our own discomfort, around grief and other pieces, I think are really important. So thank you for sharing that as part of the answer. Peggy, you've done a great job going second, so I'm going to keep that streak alive too. Your thoughts on planning for the future?
And I'm very happy to be sandwiched between these two wonderful people. I'm good with it. It's interesting because the timing of Denny's death, he died in February after his last birthday in January. And so when I get close to the end of the year, I really it's a difficult time for me. And I will hear from people who still think a lot about him and have stayed in touch with me. And I have to say, it feels really good to have people say, oh, I know today's was the day that Denny died. Now it's going to be 8 years ago. So I actually start thinking towards the end of the year about what am I going to do this year to remember him. I mean, I remember him every day. I talk to him every day, but I often sort of play favorite music of his and ours. I bring out a whole slew of notes and letters that he wrote to me over the years, and I reread those. And it's just, it feels like a wonderful way to stay connected to him because we were together like 40 years. So it was a really long time, and I actually really liked him. So it was a tremendous loss. But I think, like Michaela, I've never been someone who, sets New Year's resolutions. But I think there's just sort of this natural opportunity that comes towards the end of the year to sort of look back. And I'm thinking to myself now, being a solo ager and all the things that I've gotten involved in and started since I came to live in Cambridge, you know, about my volunteer activities and my relationships and any of the projects that I'm working on because I feel like I could stay busy kind of all the time, but I'm really trying to, it's a chance to step back and say, how many of those presentations do I want to do? How many aging and thriving talks do I want to give? And do I want to pursue that? And how many times do I want to help teach the brain health program? So it's challenging, but I have to say it's incredibly exciting to feel like I have these difficult choices to make. And I think, again, I really value having things to look forward to. And so I have a wonderful friend who we've been friends for almost 30 years coming from Cleveland to visit for 5 wonderful days in March. And she's bringing her college age daughter, who I've known since she was born. So she's coming to visit college friends in all the Boston universities, and Jane's coming to spend time with me, and some of that will be together. And I already have a trip planned in the summer to meet up with a friend from Canada that I met since I've been a solo ager by leaving my comfort zone and going to a retreat, a writing and meditation retreat that happened to be held in Maine. But I made two of the most amazing friends from Toronto. Neither of them lives there anymore, but we still get together and Zoom, and one of them I actually get together physically. So I'm sort of already planning out trips and getting together with people. And that just feels, I don't know, really hopeful. Really, there is life after death. There is life after your partner's death. And I also do some writing. And so I've been thinking about writing an essay on that because I think 7 years ago, I wasn't really sure that was the case, but I definitely am now.
Thank you for that, Peggy. Also candid, also forward thinking, all of those pieces. And Norman, I have a feeling your music list, does it get broken out at a time when you're thinking about looking forward as well? And what are the other ways that you think about the coming new year and some future planning?
I think I'm going to be brief because I know you have other things that we want to do in the last half hour of our group. But when I was younger, I used to have these elaborate plans I would make at the end of the year. One year I had an operation expansion. One year I had speech project. I was going to improve my speech. And I was really, you're setting all these ambitious goals. Doing that a while ago. And I would say my goals are a little bit more modest at this point. But I do want to mention, since we're a few weeks from Thanksgiving, that this is about as good of a time, there's no bad time. This is an especially good time to focus on gratitude. That is something that I really try to do as much as I can. I've been keeping the gratitude journal every day for a while. And the other thing I just want to put out there, because obviously this group is called Navigating Solo, but I think it's really important, at least it's been for me, to make sure that I continue to find ways to be involved with other people. When you're not working and when you're kind of designing a new way of doing things in your life, whether it be a new year or post work, which is what I'm dealing with, it's really important to keep your relationship alive. And for many of us who don't have large families at this point, it's really important to really keep the friendships going. So I would recommend that at the end of the year, if you have people in your life that you have had good friendships with in the past, but maybe some of them you've lost touch with, it's a good time to just pick up the phone or send an email or a text. And really, I have found that I've been doing this for the last couple of months. And in most cases, I find that people are very pleased that I'm reaching out to them again. I won't say it's 100%, but I would say for the much more than less, people are very glad to be in touch. And I think in the past, I would kind of wait for other people to make their first move. I don't do that anymore. I just reach out to people now. I find the end of the year is a good time to just kind of think about ways I'm going to continue to be involved with people. When you're in school or when you're at work, you always have people around you. When you're retired, life is a little different. I think we have to do our best to make sure that we stay social.
Thank you for all of those very practical and candid thoughts. Thank you to the three of you for really being incredibly honest and forthcoming and practical all at the same time, which is really a skill. So we are very grateful to you for all of that. We thought that not only did we want to hear from these three individuals, but give each other the opportunity to connect with some of the other people on. We're fortunate to have Is there anyone who wants to share something that came out of their group? Go ahead, Leanne. Hi.
In our group, we talked a lot about the importance of reaching out first. And that just made an impression on a lot of us. And I think that's really important. That's something I'm walking away with.
Excellent.
And something I'm trying to do as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I was telling Peggy that I really love the idea of setting up a kinship group for the kinless. I explained that I don't have family. My parents have passed away. I have a sister with intellectual developmental disabilities, don't have nieces and nephews, and my family is family of choice. So I love that idea. And I think I heard Peggy maybe on a podcast, Aileen, that you might have done.
Yes.
I interviewed her, and it was a fantastic thing. And I'd love it if we could set those up all over the place, wherever we are geographically, because it just feels like a wonderful
I like that.
way for us English folks to develop an emotional family.
That's fantastic. First, thanks for listening to the podcast. Second, and more importantly, having those kinds of tools ready to go for the coming year where people can download guides, where people can learn from folks like Peggy. And there's some others I know on this as well who have a different iteration of different kinds of circles and support are really great.
Where I live in Washington, D.C., the mayor does have a holiday party for seniors. And if you have social gathering in your community, it might be in church, it might be of your, like I say, New York County group. That will be open up place to look in during the year to say that when we have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other ideas, is that we meet together.
Thank you for that. It's always good to hear about what's going on in other places as well. That's the whole point. I am incredibly grateful to our three panelists for taking the initiative in creating today's program, as well as being so forthcoming and sharing their experiences, reflections, etc. So I'm really grateful, and I have a feeling that I am echoing your appreciation as well. Today, November 14th, may seem like just your average November day, but it actually is 6 months before Solo Aging Visibility Day, the second annual Solo Aging Visibility Day. The first ever Solo Aging Visibility Day was this past May. We had 30 community partners. We had 5 proud ambassadors, individuals. It was a day to raise visibility about solo aging. Using that momentum, we are doing a second annual one on May 14th, 2025. and all of the information will be available in the coming months of how you partner. But the initial information is already on the Navigating Solo website if you go to Savvy Day. Regional groups will be launching in the coming year, earlier than later. The goal is for it to be January/February. There will be different options on how to do that with different things included. If you have filled out an interest in being a part of the regional network, you will hear more information about that. I just really appreciate your participation, your interest, your feedback, your sharing with each other, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for another Navigating Solo program in the future. And thank you to our panelists and to everyone who chose to join in today's event. Thank you for tuning in to the Navigating Solo podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any questions or topic suggestions or ideas for guests who would like to come on our podcast, email us at podcast@navigating-solo.com. Until next time, stay empowered and stay connected. I'm your host, Aileen Gerhardt, and this is the Navigating Solo podcast.